Good morning and welcome to Tech Turks again. Today I have Shile of Smile Identity, and Smile Identity is in the digital identity space. So Shile, welcome to Tech Turks.
Thank you.
And Smile Identity. So first,
Yes.
why the name Smile?
So Smile was essentially coined from one of our facial recognition capability called proof of liveness. So when you're thinking about onboarding customers, you need to do some sort of proof of life. So our own way of verifying proof of life is by asking the customer to do a smile. So that's like a gesture that we ask the customer to do. And that's why we kind of coined the name from Smile Identity, and identity because we're in the identity business. Okay.
So tell me, that clearly digital identity is for recognizing people using their biometrics, I want to believe. And so what's the business model? How is it going to work? How are you going to make money from it?
So I like to say a lot of my efforts and work here in Nigeria is making sense of facial recognition. Facial recognition in itself in isolation makes no sense. And what's the business case? And that's essentially where I try to drive at. So in engaging a lot of customers, one common thing is everyone is afraid of the regulator. Everyone is trying to be compliant. So when you think about identity, KYC, it seems to be the value proposition that you're selling to bank partners, telcos as well. So essentially, what I'm able to do is use that power of facial recognition to essentially help these partners with KYC, remote KYC. Everyone is talking about digital financial services. So how do you do KYC? How do you make sure transactions are instant? How do you make sure the account opening is instant? How do you do the same work done in the back office? How do you take that to the front end? So that's essentially the business case of facial recognition and identity.
Okay, so let me just try to use an example. Let's say my office here, I have 20 employees and I have stored their faces in a database. So is it possible, so instead of doing a people count or checking the register to know how many people are in the office? So let's say we have a fire, right? So immediately from the system, I can check, I can see based on cameras that are in the office that tells me who is in the office right now, who is not in the office right now, when they came, when did they not come in, based on that.
Yes. So I mean, that's a use case you just explained. In fact, I would diverge a little bit. So the first commercial launch we had with a partner is a time and attendance management solution. So today, if you think about employee check-in and check-out, they normally use their fingerprint. So what the solution our partner built is called iClocker. So it's essentially the HR lady onboards all the personnel in the organization on this platform with their face. So anytime you check into work, especially if you're doing remote work, the company wants to be sure that you are the one who showed up to work and you're showing up to work at the location they expect you to be at. So essentially, that's a new way of managing time and attendance. So that's a use case on its own. And what you've just described is now being able to recognize the same employees that you've onboarded onto this platform. Facial recognition is able to detect that, okay, this is the head count, these are the faces I see, and and multiple applications of facial recognition.
So after this, you will talk about my consultancy, my consultancy fee. So what is your measure of success? I mean, like, there are many use cases. So as a business, how do you make money from this?
Okay, so let me start with measure of success. Measure of success for us is we see a future where essentially we have a digital profile on every individual. So you're Shile, you're in Tanzania, and you're Nigerian, and you're trying to buy a ticket online. Now, you shouldn't be measured by your IP address and where your card was issued and those nuances. It should simply be, here's my KYC profile, verified across this digital ecosystem. Facebook, Uber, Diamond Bank, Access Bank. In this profile, it shows my basic ID info, it shows my credit history, it shows my address verification, and it shows that I'm a trusted person. So essentially, that's the future we see where we're able to create a digital identity for Africans. So that's success, what success looks like. Now, in terms of who our partners are, literally our solution cuts across so many use cases. So main partners, banks, telcos, those are our main partners. And then we have the
I didn't really adopting it because I don't know any bank so far that has used facial recognition in any way to onboard people or to to authorize transactions.
So, and that's pretty interesting. And that's the work that we have to do, essentially opening up their mind to see what the use case, the business case is. So facial recognition in isolation makes no sense to the bank. But the business case, so today, for instance, we have a product where, as a bank, say I enable account opening on my mobile banking app, and I want anyone to download that app and get an account. Now, part of, say, tier 2 accounts, part of the requirement is I have to submit a means of ID. Now, fine. What the bank can do now with my technology is, Shile, provide me a picture of yourself during that onboarding and provide me the ID number. My technology will essentially check on the database to see what's the Shile's photo on file, compare it with this picture during onboarding and say, one, this ID is valid because I can see it on the database. Two, Shile is actually using his real ID to onboard that service. So now the bank is comfortable that I can open an account for Shile because now I have information, I've done a validation on the credentials that Shile provided during onboarding. So that is a business case for a bank. And we're doing POCs with some commercial banks, and you're correct. You know, a lot of them request for POCs before they actually go into commercial launches. But the business case matters. The telco business, regulation plays a big part. Today in Nigeria, regulation does not expect the telcos to verify any means of ID before you issue SIM. But then what's happening now is telcos are, you know, this PSB initiative that's coming up. So they're being regulated by CBN, and we all know that for you to have compliant accounts, depending on the level of KYC, you need to do some KYC on those accounts. So now telcos are starting to understand the business case and are embracing the technology.
How much data do you have? I mean, how much data do you have?
Today, our ID reach, because we're operational in 4 markets, Nigeria, Ghana, Tanzania, and Kenya, is over 100 million. Only banks and telcos have access to that number of what's called IDs.
So where are you mostly active? Which of those markets are you mostly active, and why is that? What are the factors that are driving that success?
Nigeria, obviously, because of the size and also the level at which our companies here have adopted technology.
So my last question to you: everybody, I mean, so like we're onboarding, we're creating solutions for individuals, but one area where there's great opportunity is small businesses, especially in Nigeria, where you have over 17 million. And businesses, I mean, like the barrier to entry to become a business is lower today, but beyond the regulatory documentation and opening, incorporating your business. But businesses still have to go to banks to do all this account opening. How does Smile see itself in this, in trying to make it easier and create a better experience?
So it's interesting you mentioned that. So part of, from our engagements with banks, as I mentioned, the business case is what matters. Now, one of the opportunities we also identified is account opening, seamless account opening for SMEs. Today, there's a lot of retail accounts open out there, but the SMEs, no one has really figured out how to make that process, easier for them.
You think it's because the system is not configured to do that? I mean, like the banking application, the different systems that are tailored for different markets, but not for this. Nobody had built one from the ground up.
That's one. And the second thing is the infrastructure. So what do I mean by infrastructure? For instance, with an SME, at least you want to be sure that they're registered with CAC. You have the different government agencies already exposing APIs to access the different ID types, but CAC does not even have an API yet.
I thought they were building one.
That's in process. So that's something that we're also planning to leverage on to build that end-to-end SME banking account opening solution for banks. And then you have the other, agencies like the tax authorities as well, being able to easily access their service over API. So the infrastructure and also the fact that the systems that exist in the banking industry have not necessarily considered the SME segment, or they haven't built out. They've been more focused on building out retail. But yes, that's a big opportunity, and that's something that we're looking at with our bank partners.
Shile, thank you very much for coming on Tech Turks. We can talk about this forever.
Yeah.
But we'll continue the conversation offline.
Okay.
Thank you very much for coming to Tech Turks.
Pleasure. Thank you.